Hi everyone, welcome to Goodknits by SK here on YouTube. I'm Sherry and I am an expat living in Amsterdam for the last 7 years, where I currently live with my husband. This is going to be podcast number 8 and the final one of the year, so final of 2023. So thank you for spending time with me today. I am currently filming this on December 28th, which means Christmas has come and gone, and I am enjoying a very much needed week off work where my only plan is to sit, relax, spend time with my husband, and I've had quite a lot of knitting plans for this week. I posted a reel on Instagram at the start to say kind of what I wanted to accomplish, so I'm going to show you some progress on that today. But overall, my biggest intention for kind of this last week of the year is to just finish up all those whips that I have. I realized that I had way too many projects ongoing, I think around 9. And one of my goals, which I'll do a separate video on for 2024, is to just really be more focused and intentional about what I'm knitting and have less projects happening at the same time. So I really want to try to clear out a lot of the whips that I have so I can make room for new projects in 2024, but also less projects at a time. So I think I've actually made pretty good progress this week, and there's quite a lot to go through. I will be doing a Everything I Knit in 2023 video, probably in early to mid-January, because I want to wait to see what I finish this week before I record that, because I think quite a lot of projects will get added. And I think that should be interesting because I would say have more reflections on the last year as opposed to like a lot of detail about what I want to go through for my knits. So I'm very eager to share that and hoping that I can get to that soon. Let's start with what I'm wearing, maybe before we dive into the actual episode today. So this is my Chloe pullover, which is by Krystyna Tick, or Tick Design, I believe, on Instagram. And I did this in January 2022 as a test knit for her. And I really like this piece, but I was trying to think the other day why I don't really wear it that often. And I think honestly, it's because of this mohair detail at the top. I love it, but it's not the most bra friendly. And I personally really hate wearing strapless bras throughout the entire day. So I just find it uncomfortable. But I do love this piece. I just maybe wish it worked a little bit better for me personally. But I really love the yarn choices that I made on this, which is Knitting for Olive Merino and paired with their soft silk mohair in Dusty Violet. So maybe honestly, this is a color that I would use again in a different piece because I think it's quite flattering on me and I really, really like it. One other video that I am planning to film this week while I'm off is a 2024 knitting goals video, and I would maybe say knitting goals and intentions, which I started to make a list this week and realized that for me, I think it's really going to be about more how knitting fits into my life as opposed to like very specific technical skills, pattern type goals. So I think that's something that will come to you probably early first week of January. Because I'll talk about this a bit more in that video. One of the things that I realized in 2023 is I plan to do too much, especially at one time, and therefore I wasn't really accomplishing anything. And I noticed that even like in this week of knitting, right, that I have way too many whips on the go. I'm doing too many things at one time, and therefore it feels like I'm never actually getting anything off my needles, other than maybe a few accessories. And that's something that I really want to change going into next year. Because yeah, I mean, part of knitting is having that satisfaction of a final garment or item that you can use that fits into your life. And especially the last few months, like with my fall knitting, I feel like there was very little other than gift knits that I actually got off my needles and could enjoy. And that's something that I just really don't want to bring into next year. Okay, let's jump into the episode. So first things first, I wanted to talk about the Stitch Advent Calendar from Firefly, who's it from? Firefly Notes Online. So this was what I bought in well, not I. This is what my mom gifted me in Canada from Statement Junkie, the yarn store that we went to there. And it is a set of 25 stitch markers and progress keepers, all in kind of celestial and fairy world themes. Obviously, so this was super fun to open. And let me just give you a bit of a sneak peek there. So this was really fun to open, and I love the process because I found with the yarn advent that I got last year, while I enjoyed opening that, I ended up having no real use for it in the end, and I actually just recently sold it because I realized there was no specific project that I was dying to make, and I wanted it, well, one, I wanted to get the money for it so that I could then put that into a new project, and I wanted it to go to somebody that I felt like would actually enjoy it and turn it into an item. So this year I switched it up and I went with the Stitch Advent Calendar, which one thing I think I am going to do with this, because 25 stitch markers is way too much for one person, especially because I bought other ones when I was there, and I also have other stitch markers that I use. I think I'm going to do, when I get to 2,000 subscribers, which I'm not so far off of, so maybe by my next podcast or whatever next episode I post, I think I'm going to do a bit of a giveaway. So maybe pair these into 5 stitch markers, 2 sets of 5 stitch markers, and do a couple giveaway items. So maybe stay tuned for that. Also let me know if that's something that you're interested in. I've never done a giveaway before, but I really want to thank everybody for being here and subscribing and watching, especially those that have been here since episode 1, because, you know, in 4 short months, I feel like I've accomplished more through this YouTube channel than I thought would be possible. I didn't think I would be near 2,000 at the end of that time frame, and that people would be so engaged with my content. So I just really want to thank people for that. And also, these are beautiful stitch markers, so I want to share the love of that. So let's get started with the finished objects that I have. So 2 things that I said I wanted to work on this week during my week off is 2 hats. And the first one is the weekend hat by PetiteKnit. So I will put this on. So this is made in DK weight yarn. I use the DROPS Lima, which is a wool and alpaca blend, 65% wool, 35% alpaca. So this hat to make, because I only used 2.32 balls, cost me €7.95. So really affordable piece. The yarn quality is actually not bad. I wasn't sure while I was making it because it does, it's got like little fluffies similar to Mohair, and it was a little bit scratchy, but it did soften up quite a lot after blocking. So similar to the Drops Nepal that I used for my friend Sophie Shawl. This project took me quite a while to make. So I started it on October 29th and I finished it December 23rd. And part of the reason is it's quite a large piece. So you knit this section, you do some tubular knitting, you go up, you do another round of that, and then go up and then do the decreases. So this is so that you can do this double folded brim, which I was quite excited for, but I find that the way that this folds, I can't seem to get it to perfectly work where you can't really see these fold lines. So I keep playing around with it, I keep trying to adjust it, and I can't make it work. I also just find that this hat is not the most flattering on me specifically. I kind of feel like because I have a small head, it makes me look a little bit like a mushroom top, and it might be a bit of the color choice as well. But I really want to give this pattern a try because I tend to make a lot of Oslo hats and also Stockholm hats, which I'll show you in a second. So I wanted to branch out from that, and I'm glad that I did. I tried it, but I think especially with the 1x1 rib of this and how long it is, it's not something that I would be dying to make again. And I know part of the reason that this one took me so long was simply because once I started it, I kind of knew I didn't want to finish it, or I wasn't like dying to have it in my wardrobe. And so that's a big reason that I didn't push through and do this faster, because usually a hat only takes me like a few days, maybe a week, if I'm really dedicated to it. I also find with this hat that the decreases, and maybe it's just the way that I did it, look a little bit messy, especially that one. These ones aren't so bad, but I don't know what I did. So I just, compared to like the Oslo hat or Stockholm, I don't think the decreases look as polished and commercial as some of the other patterns that PetiteKnit has. So I don't know what I'm going to do with this. I think it'll be just a hat that I throw on really cold days, because it is probably the warmest hat that I have now. But I don't see myself wearing this a lot, and it's definitely not a pattern that I'm going to be making again. But no fault to the pattern, it's just a personal preference on that one. Also with this one, it was the very first time that I tried, when blocking, doing the drain and spin option on my washing machine. So I saw Emily from High Fiber Knits talking about this, and I'd never actually really thought about using that setting, but she did it on a cardigan and said it really sped up the drying process. And I figured since I have a newer machine, hopefully it would be quite safe to put it on that setting. And since this yarn was really cheap and I wasn't super attached to the hat, I thought it was a good option to do a first test run on. And it worked amazingly well. So I just put it in on about half the speed that my dryer or my washing machine could do. Then I laid it out to block, and it only took about a day to dry. So compared to, I think in the past, just trying to dry hats in the winter without doing that, it usually takes 4 to 5 days, if not longer. So really recommend that. I would love to know though, if other people have tried that and if you've ever had it go wrong, because I would like to use it on especially garments, but I'm a little bit nervous that if I do that, like for example, my Salty Day sweater, that it will end up ruining the piece, and that would be very soul destroying. So let me know if any of you have had any issues using drain and spin on your washer, or if you think it's quite safe to just carry on doing that on pieces. I think obviously I wouldn't do it on an all mohair piece because I think that would be quite risky, but especially on heavier weight yarns, it seems like a good option to really speed up that process. Then the second finished object that I have is a Stockholm hat, also by PetiteKnit. And this is for my husband. So I made him, I talked about this last time, I made him also a Stockholm hat last year in this ice green. And this is Sandnes Garn Sunday and Tynn silk mohair in, I can't remember the exact color number. It's an ice green or ice blue. And he loves this hat, but as I predicted, I told him the color probably wouldn't hold up for many years, and it was a bit seasonal and something that he just liked in the moment. So that obviously happened, and he does still wear this one a lot, but he wanted it to be in a more neutral kind of color. So he asked me to make him a new one, but also he has quite a large head, especially compared to me. And so he asked me if I could make this one a little bit longer. So like for reference, this is how his old one looks on me, which is already quite big. And I made this one, I think it's about like 2 to 3 centimeters longer. And this is block, so I mean, it's quite a bit bigger. He hasn't tried it on yet. But I think worst case, he can also fold up the brim a bit more. So I really, really like how this one turned out. It's also made in Sandnes Garn, Sunday, and Tynn Silk Mohair, but this one is deep Petrol, which I also have a sweater made in, and I just love this green. And usually I don't like the Tynn Silk Mohair, but I actually think these kind of silvery fibers really give some depth to the piece. The only issue that I have with this, when I did magic loop, I feel like I ended up with a bit of a weird, bit of a weird gap here. So I got some laddering, which I tried to block out. It didn't really work, but I think it'll stretch with use. And thankfully, I was able to wait to do magic loop until right near the end. So I was able to do in the round for most of this hat. So it's not super noticeable. But let's just also compare. So yeah, like this is how much bigger the new hat is compared to the old one. So I think this will work a lot better for him. And if you want to see just how the hat is meant to look at a normal size, so this is my version of it, made in iris blue, also the same yarn. I did it last year. So we have matching hats, and I do honestly really love the Stockholm hat. The only thing I don't love about it is the process of knitting it, because again, it's 1x1 rib, but thankfully it's on, I think, 4mm needles, so slightly bigger than the weekend hat. This one I do find goes quite a lot quicker, especially because it's just a single fold for the brim. So I don't mind knitting it, once a year, but it's not my favorite. And I told him that for any future hats, he's gonna have to move to a stockinette one, because I am done with 1x1 rib for him for a little bit, and it's time for him to branch out to another hat anyway. So construction method for this hat is quite simple. You do a tubular cast on for the bottom, then you just knit up in your 1x1 rib, and then you end up having decreases done on either side of these middle stitches. And then you just bind off. So, it's quite a nice process. I really love the way that the top, or let's use the better side. I really love the way that the decreases look on either side, and I think I have gotten better about making them look cleaner as I've done each hat. So yeah, that is my second finished object. Not the most exciting, but I said I wanted to do 2 hats this week, and I wrapped those up first. So 2 items off my list. Then the next project that I want to talk about is one that actually isn't in my holiday knitting plans this week. And there is a very good reason for that. So this is my Turtle Dove shawl by Sari Nordland. And I was making this as part of the mystery make-along. So I said last time this was a last minute cast on that I bought yarn for on my way home from Canada. And I plan to kind of keep up with the weekly clues and then finish it by Christmas. And I was actually doing very, very well. So I said last time I had kind of gotten to this point, realized I was reading the wrong side stitches the wrong way. Pattern wasn't looking correct. I had to rip out, start completely fresh. I did that again. Then I did make a little bit of a mistake somewhere around the end of clue 1, where I was working on in the morning. I did the same thing. I read a few rows the wrong way, but not so noticeable that I felt like I needed to rip back and do those over. So I just corrected it for future rows. I don't know why I keep doing that. I keep reading wrong side rows the wrong way, but regardless, hopefully now burned into my brain. So I was doing really well, and then I got close to the end of clue 2, and I started to notice, so you end up doing, rather than increasing every 7 or second row, you start to increase every 4th row. And I thought I was doing really well. All my stitch numbers were correct. I had the right number of stitches on my needles, but then I started to realize like it was getting really, really tight here. And I ended up with this like weird bubble pucker. And I was like, okay, well, the pattern photos definitely look like there's a bit of a rounded ridge as opposed to like a full point. So I was like, I'm sure it'll just kind of come together and look correct. But as I kept working on it, it just kept getting tighter and tighter and tighter, and then that bubble formed. So yeah, I realized, okay, I can't continue with this. Something is definitely wrong. I have absolutely no idea what I did wrong, because I definitely increased in the correct spot. I didn't do it on the I cord, but it's the I cord that looks really messed up. So I've messed that up somehow, somewhere. Like I said, I have the right number of stitches. The pattern looks correct other than on that side. So I've racked my brain and I just really have no clue what I did here. So all that said, I stopped, and I think like this pattern is so intricate and complicated, and I would need to rip back like 20 rows. So I don't want to tank and try to like go backwards with my stitches that amount of time. I just don't think I have the patience for it, and I don't want this piece so bad that I feel like I need to do that. But I do want to give this a chance because I love the yarn. So it's I love the yarn. So it's Gepard, Wild and Soft in aubergine or eggplant, and Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in Bordeaux. And I think like I really, really want this piece in my wardrobe. I think it's gonna go perfect with my camel color coat. So I think what I'll do, and I'll film this, is I'm just gonna take the needles out. I'll film it for my next episode. I'm just gonna take the needles out, rip the yarn back to a point where I feel like it's before the every 4th row increases, and then just try very slowly to pick up the stitches as I'm ripping out on a row and see if I can fix it from there. There's just such a risk that if I drop a stitch, I'm not gonna know how to fix it to then be in pattern. But the idea of like ripping the whole thing out and starting over, I just can't even fathom that right now. And if I had to do that, I know that I'll just end up putting it aside and not doing it this year, and maybe I'll come back to it next year, or I'll pick a different shawl pattern, not even shawl, scarf, to use this yarn for. So I'm really hoping that that will work for me. I think actually the biggest challenge will just be on the I-cord edges. So I need to be very careful because like I said, seems to be where I messed up in general. So I need to pick those up properly so that I don't end up with the same mistake. And then if I do kind of make this mistake again, I might need somebody's help to figure out what the hell I'm doing wrong. So yeah, this is a bit of a shame because I think it's one of the most complicated texture patterns. Well, it is the most complicated texture pattern I've ever worked on. I felt like I was getting into a good rhythm. I was keeping up with the clues. I was really excited for this. And then when I noticed that, it just like made my heart fall because especially it's very frustrating when you don't know what you actually did wrong. So therefore you don't know how to fix it. Like I don't know how to prevent myself from doing this again. And I hate feeling that way. And I know it's just part of knitting and like learning new things. But yeah, that drives me a little bit crazy. So if anybody also has advice on like, if you know kind of what went wrong here to cause this, let me know. I am open to any and all feedback to make sure this doesn't happen again. And like I said, I will try to film the process of me kind of frogging this and trying to pick up stitches and start over, and we will see how it goes. So hopefully I have something to report back on that's positive in the next podcast episode, or maybe I won't. So that is the turtle dove shawl, which other than frogging this week, I have no intention of working on. I don't even know if I'll frog it. Then the next project that wasn't really on my winter knitting plan, my holiday knitting plan list were my Sunday socks. So I talked about these many episodes ago. I had finished one sock, I think back in September, maybe October, and I have had the second sock on my needles since then. So I originally casted the second sock on immediately, finished the ribbing, lost steam, put it aside for other projects, and then last week I decided to pick it back up and finally at least finish the heel. So now I just have the foot. But this is another piece where I'm like, I just don't really have the motivation to work on this one. And I think it's mostly because I've realized I don't really want this item. Similar to the weekend slip-over V-neck comments that I made before, I don't love this color. It's okay on me, but it's just not my favorite brown. And the only reason I'm really making these Sunday socks is because I had so much leftover yarn from that slip over. So I felt like I need to use it for something. I figured, a DK weight pair of socks because I'm always cold. So that would be great in the winter. But the thing is, I have so many house socks, like really thick. I mean, even, I'm gonna show you, my husband for Christmas this year, my stocking bought me these like wool booty things. Our apartment is always freezing, and therefore like these are not thick enough to really combat that, and I don't see myself wearing them with my boots. Maybe I would, but probably not. So I'm not sure why I'm making these or where they're going to fit within my life day to day, which is making me just not want to work on them. And I think, it goes along with too realizing I'm not a big sock knitter. I don't enjoy the process. I also just don't think they have a place in my wardrobe. So I don't know. I feel like I should finish these because I don't really have any other use for the yarn, but then am I finishing them just to essentially tick them off a list and have another project on my Ravelry page? I don't know. It's probably like an hour or two of extra work. So maybe I'll finish these this week, next week. What are your guys' thoughts? I mean, they're close. Is there something else that would be better use for this yarn? It's the Filcolana Peruvian Highland wool in Camel. So close. So that's the update on the Sunday socks, because they've been sitting there for a while, and it's kind of one of those additional whips that I just would like to make a decision about. And I think actually those socks are the perfect example of one of my goals for 2024, which I'll get into in the other video I film. But essentially knowing when to stop certain projects, I think, is a big one for me. So I'll maybe do some self-reflection on that and then decide how I'm gonna finish and come back to you guys. The other project that I'm hoping to finish this week is my Camisole number 9 from My Favorite Things Knitwear, knit up in this bottle green merino from Knitting for Olive. This hasn't had a ton of progress since the last podcast I showed you, other than I did do, I think, another probably 5 to 6 centimeters on the body. So I'm now at the point where I can switch to the smaller needle size and do the folded hem. So I need to put this on try-on tubing and finally see how it fits. I haven't done that yet. Shame on me. And if I do that today, then I'll probably insert some B-roll of me wearing it, because I haven't done that yet. It's going to be the first time that I have done a folded hem. I'm a little bit nervous about it because I think other people have mentioned that they've had issues on other pieces where the hem then ends up flaring out a little bit. So maybe I'll go back and watch some videos and read people's Ravelry notes to see if there's any tips that I can get to make sure that doesn't happen. But I'm hoping to accomplish that today. And then I want to also start on the trim for the neck and armholes. But I realized that while the body trim calls for 2.5 millimeter needles, the other trim needs 2 millimeter, which I didn't have for my Chow Goose, so I need to order those. They should be here today, so then I can also start on that, which I've heard is not the most fun part of the project to work on, but I really am excited to have this piece. So I just want to power through that, and I figure while I have the time off this week, that's the perfect moment to do it. So I do expect that I will have this done, and then I can block it and include it in my 2023 video. And then the big project that I have been focused on, other than the hats this week, is my Salty Days sweater. So I originally said for the week that I really wanted to just finish one sleeve and the neck ribbing. But then on Christmas Day, I had some spare time while my husband was napping, and I decided to just cast on the second sleeve, because after doing the twisted rib on the cuff of the first sleeve, I definitely did not want to do that on the neck ribbing right away. So I figured working on this 2x1 rib on the sleeve would be a little bit more digestible. So I cast that on immediately. I finished this sleeve in, I think, 2 days. And then yesterday I cast on for the twisted rib neckline, but that is, I think, close to 30 rows of twisted ribs. So it's going very slowly because it's on 3 millimeter needles. And I find twisted rib really hard on my hands, like especially on the small circumference. So I can only do a few rows at a time. So I think I'm almost halfway through the neckline. So if I give myself another day or two to slowly work through that, then I can finish that off. One thing I'm trying to decide is the pattern calls for binding off loosely and then sewing down the neckline, but I find like that just seems like an extra step when I could just fold it over and bind off, attaching it already to the inside. And maybe if I do similar to, I think the Storm sweater called for every second stitch that you actually bound off with so you could keep it loose. I think maybe I'll do the same technique here and see if that's loose enough to get over my head, because yeah, I don't really want to bind off and then sew down. I just don't love that process, but I am worried that if I don't do it that way, the neckline might be too tight to get over my head, because this twisted rib doesn't have a lot of give to it. Let me know your thoughts. If you've made this, how did you handle the neckline? Did you do it the way that I want or the way the pattern suggests? Oh, why isn't this focusing? I also am going to be playing a little bit of yarn chicken. So this is all I have left. I do think I should be able, hopefully, to get through the remaining twisted rib rows on the neckline. But it's also maybe a happy accident that I did do the second sleeve first, because I hadn't really thought about the fact that I would run out of yarn potentially. So this way I finished the sleeves in the correct yarn, and I figure for the neckline, if I do run out, I have the cotton merino knitting for olive from my Tolsta tee. So I could just hold that double on a slightly bigger needle and then use that for the inside of the collar, because nobody will see it. And actually that would maybe be a little bit softer on the neck as well. So that's my plan, because there's no point in buying a whole other ball of this when I will only need a few grams. So that works out well, because I hadn't really thought about that. If I'd done the neckline first and then run out during the sleeve, I would have been forced to buy another ball or take out the neckline and then do this method. So that's good. The sleeves for this one were really simple. Thankfully, they were wide enough too that I could do knitting in the round on my 10 centimeter needles on a shorter cord, all the way up until the cuff. And that's when I switched to magic loop for the twisted rib. So that also helped be able to knit a lot faster for the sleeves, because I could do that just in the round, which is definitely my preference for sleeves. I don't like magic loop and I don't like DPNs. I find they slow me down. And for the most part, the sleeves were completely uneventful. I didn't have any mistakes on this pattern like I did for the body. So that went smoothly. And I think it's so interesting now to also see the blocked body compared to the unblocked sleeve, because now I really get a sense of just how much this is going to grow. And also feeling the blocked and unblocked yarn together gets me really excited for this sweater, because, you know, I talked a lot before around how I was worried this yarn would feel a bit too rustic and be scratchy. I'm not worried about that at all anymore. Just holding out the blocked part while knitting the sleeves. It's so soft, and I think, you know, these sleeves are gonna bloom beautifully after blocking, and this piece will have a bit more of a relaxed fit. I do still wish I'd maybe knit a size up for the medium, so it was really oversized, which is more what I was imagining. But I think in the end, I'm gonna be happy with this. I'm really excited to get it off my needles. I think I'm gonna wear this a lot. It's been quite cold in Amsterdam and windy, and this just feels like it's going to fit in seamlessly to my wardrobe. So I will report back hopefully in the next episode. Once I've blocked and actually been able to wear it, I'll give a full review on my thoughts. But this is definitely the biggest piece that I am excited to finish during this week. And also I think one of the pieces I'm going to be proud of, or the most proud of in 2023, because while this wasn't super complicated, it just looks really impressive and detailed. And I think this yarn is really, really nice as well. So very excited about this. Well, I promised myself I was not going to start any new projects until January 1st. Because I finished the 2 hats I was working on quite early in the week, and I needed just like a nighttime knitting in front of the TV project, I ended up casting on an Oslo hat. So I haven't made it very far, but yeah, it doesn't look like much at all. And I am making this in the Sandnes Garn Sunday PetiteKnit in color 9581, which I think was called Pine Green. And then I have paired it with the Isager silk mohair, which is 75% kid mohair, 25% silk. And it's in color 68, which is this kind of more olivey green. And I will say I'm not 100% loving the way that they're working together, because this Isager has it looks like when knitted together almost little gold flecks in it, which is giving this speckled look. It doesn't bother me so much that I won't finish it, because I know I'll wear this piece. And honestly, the two paired together are probably the softest combination I've ever worked with. This mohair is beautiful. So unlike the Tynn silk mohair from Sandnes, I find a little bit itchy, and I don't like that kind of silvery coil throughout. This is soft, like it feels not at all itchy when you're working it up with another yarn. It does also kind of have that like weird color mixing like the Tynn, so that's the only part I don't like. But overall, I mean, I think this and the Filcolana Tilia, also the soft silk mohair from Knitting for Olive, of all the mohairs I've worked with so far, those are my top three, and I think this definitely gets the softest award. So if you haven't worked with it before, I highly recommend. I think especially I use it on my Oslo sweater paired with the Suik Tibet, and also that piece isn't at all itchy. I love the way that the mohair, because of that kind of color change, also marls quite well, so I really wanted that look on that sweater. This one I didn't want that so much, but I think also if I had paired it with a slightly different green, it wouldn't be as obvious. It's just these two together obviously are not perfect matches, but that's okay. I intentionally bought them to work together for an Oslo hat, so I'm just kind of accepting that for now. And yeah, I'm just excited to have an Oslo hat for myself, because I have made a lot for other people in the last month, and now it's time for me to have my own hat. So the final piece I want to talk about today is what I plan my New Year's Day cast on to be, and that is my Monday sweater. So I have already swatched for this. I showed this in my winter knitting plans video. This is the High Holtz Utspinderi Danspasold A2 in copper. So I also wound this up on my new Swift, which is one of my acquisitions. I got the Chowgu Swift so that I could finally stop knotting my yarn and hand spinning it, which was a real pain. So I've paired that with the Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in claret, and I think that they go really, really well together. Yeah, so I am very excited to have this piece. The only thing is, this yarn is probably the most rustic that I have worked with. So even after blocking, it is a little bit itchy. And like, let me show. So you can see like it's a 2-ply twisted yarn with quite a lot of little threads coming out of it. So definitely it didn't soften up that much. I did question if I should continue with this one, but I think I really love the color a lot. I want to work with a new yarn, and I think if I wear an undershirt, hopefully it will be manageable on skin. And I think because it's not a really high neckline, the Monday sweater has kind of like a lower raglan collar. I think it should be fine to just wear a shirt underneath, and it shouldn't be too scratchy on the neck. So I am going to carry on with this and then see how it goes. But I am very excited for my Monday sweater. I also plan for that to be my only top that I work on for a bit, because I'm hoping I can kind of get back to being able to finish a sweater within a month, which, yeah, I haven't been great about in the last, well, half year. So that is the plan for the Monday sweater, and I think that will take most of January. And I don't really have anything new to talk about in terms of acquisitions. Like I said, I got a Swift, which I have already put to good use. I didn't get any new yarn because I really just want to be using the yarn that I have. So probably you're not going to see much on that front over the next month until I get the additional yarn for my soft loop sweater. And I just bought some cords for my Chaogu mini needles for the 2.5 and 2 millimeter. So yeah, I did also buy the Knitter's Book of Yarn by Clara Parks. And I just got the ebook version because it was actually quite hard to find a hardcover copy here in the Netherlands that wasn't really expensive or would take weeks and weeks to ship. And it's something that I just want to read in my spare time. So that is something that I'm going to work through as well, because I would like to learn a little bit more about yarn and what to consider, so that maybe I also don't end up in the same situation as this rustic yarn. I know what to maybe look for when I'm reading descriptions, because I will say that's not really my strong suit. So it's a skill that I can always improve, and I plan to. Thank you so much for watching today. This is my final episode of 2023. And I just thank you so much for tuning in and watching and supporting me the last few months. If you like this content, please like, comment. It means a lot and it helps me grow my channel. And also subscribe so that you can see future podcasts and other content that I'm creating. I wish you all the best in 2024 and happy knitting.